I'm Guy, and this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting live 6 days a week, twice a day, Monday through Friday at 12 noon and 5 p.m., once on Saturday at 5 p.m., and an interview every Sunday. I got it today.
Oh, no, hold on. There we go. But before we start, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe. It really does help us out. Again, we attempt to read all your comments here live on the show. However, if you feel so inclined, you can always super chat and we will prioritize those and read those. Interrupt the show and read those first. Sorry, it's been an early morning today. Thank you so much to the Jason Levine Show for having us on. Jason and Paula were very nice and kind, and we got up at 7:30 to be able to be on it.
Well, I'll say Jason was absolutely fantastic. I've been watching his show for a long time. That being said, that was our first guest appearance. Now, Nat, on the other hand, has done plenty of guest appearances on other shows like WDW Pro. I've never done it. I'm not used to a sound delay. I felt awkward.
But thank you so much to them. They were very kind.
So hopefully I can get better as we go along. And Jason's going to be on our show on Friday. And hopefully we'll talk a lot of strategy and stuff like that.
Yes, but as an interview, so that will come out afterwards.
Yeah. And I will say one other thing. We did a lot of interviews this morning with Jason Levine, and then we had a interview I didn't want to discuss until we had it, and that was with Dallas Brody from 1BC. Yes. It was a fantastic interview. We asked her a lot about BC and adjacent topics that are related to Alberta independence. And at the end of the interview, we went into Alberta independence, and I was shocked.
It was very interesting.
It was very interesting.
Watch out for that interview. It should be coming out either tomorrow or Friday, depending on how fast I can get all our intro, outro stuff in it and cut a trailer to put it on X. But watch out for that one. We will be announcing when it comes out, when it's ready.
Well, and I'll say, I hope
thank you so much to Dallas Brody also for sitting with us.
And I will say, I hope a lot of other Alberta independence creators start reaching out to Dallas, because the issue she's facing in BC, a lot of people are facing in Alberta too. And if we don't get our independence, it's just going to continue down that road. You can kind of see your future by where BC is kind of at today.
Exactly. And hello Don says, good morning, Nat and Guy and all else. I honestly feel like it's 7 p.m. because again, I never wake up early. I'm very bad at waking up. I have a very deep sleep. Nothing wakes me up. No alarms. Not even the guy can wake me up. And I woke up at 4 a.m. to be able to be on the show. So again, thank you so much to the Jason Levine Show.
And we usually sandwich our interviews between the morning and the night show. Today we did all the interviews in the morning. So Nat might be a little tired. We'll see if she can hold it together.
Todd says, hey guys, way to hook up with Jason and Paula. Great people, love their kids, so fun. And they're great. They were very nice and very kind as well.
Yes.
On our first together interview, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And he was he's very helpful at telling us other people that would be good interviews and things like that. And we kind of need help in that area because we're just learning as we go. We've only recently started doing interviews and reaching out to people. I'm actually shocked some of the people that got back to us when we just sent out cold emails.
And thank you also to them for all the tips they gave us as well.
Yeah, one other thing, in case anybody is watching, Thursday is usually the day we send out the majority of our emails to schedule for the next week. We have a lot of messages we have to reply to in our inbox right now. So, yeah. I'll just leave it there.
I don't know where you were getting with that, but Justin GP says, great interview today, guys. Thank you so much. And says, you guys seriously did great. We tried to do great. Also tomorrow, by the way, while we're at this and speaking about other guest appearances I've done, tomorrow there won't be a noon show because usually every other Thursday, I am on WDW Pro, which is a channel that discusses all things entertainment and Hollywood and the downfall of Hollywood. So if you want to watch me on there, it starts at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I will always post the link either here both here on the community tab and also on X.
Okay.
And I try to bring in Alberta independence as much as I can because it's a U.S. show.
Let's try to get to the show if we can.
Yes, sorry. Starting with the breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Already rushing me, we just started. Can't speak on my own show.
I actually gathered the stories for the morning show at like 4 a.m. today, but there was a segment I wanted to put in there because it was interesting. It was the whistleblower from the Line podcast coming out making all kinds of statements that we should not have a referendum now, in the future. Both questions should be closed. It's important that we know what she's saying, because she is really the one connecting all these dots. And it seems like all these politicians are falling in line with her little plan. She kind of laid it out on her live podcast a week ago.
Yes, so that is Jen Gerson from The Line, who again has been speaking out about essentially what she plans to do and how she plans to destroy true democracy by saying that citizen referendums and initiatives are not democratic. That is essentially, I think, what she's going to be trying to do. But here she was on Real Talk, Ryan Jesperson. No idea who that is.
Well, the left the left alternative media isn't a very big space right now. So, but I pay very close attention to it, and I was able to catch this.
What's happening right now is nothing short of a democratic coup. Smith brought this upon herself. She has brought this fire upon all of us. 70% of the province has no interest in engaging in this vote. These people do not have a democratic mandate to force such a serious and consequential vote on the rest of us. And yes, I am absolutely concerned that this could wind up being a Brexit vote, where you have a lot of people voting to separate from Canada because they stupidly think that that's going to be a way to send a message to Ottawa with no understanding or appreciation for the consequences of either holding the vote in the first place or what would happen if they won. You can't put the cat in the bag, but you can say, no, we can't hold a succession referendum under these conditions. That's crazy town. I don't think the Elections Alberta has a democratic legitimacy to run a succession referendum at present. I don't think it's going to have the legitimacy to run that until we know it is properly funded and that its investigative mandate has been restored appropriately. Whether you want to blame the government or Elections Alberta is irrelevant to me. That's just the reality of where we are today. I don't care what Danielle Smith says anymore. I only watch what she does. I'm not remotely interested in what Danielle Smith claims to be or claims not to be. If Danielle Smith says that she's a federalist, but she acts like a separatist, then she's a separatist by default. She doesn't need to shut them down. She doesn't need to put them in a box. She can just say, look, there's appropriate path for them to go, and it's not here. Start a party, stand candidates, win an election on an explicitly separatist mandate. If you can do that, then you have no complaints from me. Then I think you have the legitimacy to run this vote. But anything short of that is chicanery, and it's a coup, and it's an undermining of our democratic process by a minority of Albertans who know very well that if they just get enough people outraged into the polls, that they can force a kind of Brexit referendum that a lot of people are going to wind up getting hurt by, and a lot of people are going to wind up regretting on October 20th. If your argument for why she can't do that is because it would split her party, then what you're effectively arguing is that the maintenance of the UCP is more important than the country. You have to be open and honest about what you believe and what you stand for. Okay, that's all I'm asking any of these guys. If these guys are serious about separatism and they think that this is a viable path forward, then why are you using democratic subterfuge to force it on us? Why can't you just run it through a free and fair election? And the reason why is because they know they can't win that way. They know that their only chance of winning is by being misleading. Well, this isn't a democratic process. The democratic process does not allow an explicitly federalist party to run an ordinary election campaign on bread and butter tax issues and then 3 years later foist an existential referendum on the rest of us. That's insane.
Okay,
So that's what we're up against.
Well, and I wanted to play the whole argument. She lays out the nationalist argument within inside Alberta the best of anybody right now. So we want to know how the politicians are going to start laying it out, because the mainstream media and the politicians don't have their narrative quite adjusted very tightly right now. She's kind of laid it out for them, and I think they're going to follow that path. So we need to be prepared for this. She wants to run right around democracy and try to delay this referendum, make sure these questions do not get on the ballot. We need to continue to pressure Danielle Smith to make sure democracy rules the day, and one of the two questions are on that October 19th ballot. Again, that was the whistleblower from the Centurion Project and everything else. Yeah.
And again, they're trying to use the whole Elections Alberta data breach that they're trying to make into a scandal and bigger than I guess it is as of now, because there's still no news about it. That's why we've been kind of saying we're going to wait until there's more news, actual news regarding it. And they're trying to use that to say that the whole process is not democratic, that citizens shouldn't be able to hold initiatives or referendums, and that the only way to do it is to start by building a party, which again would take forever, which is what they want to do. They want to stall it, but this is the argument they're using.
Yeah, and we also have to realize that she's claiming collusion between Elections Alberta, Danielle Smith, Centurion Project. They're trying to connect dots that just aren't there in order to pressure Danielle Smith to make sure there's not a question on the October 19th ballot. So Danielle Smith is being pulled from all sides right now. Hopefully our side has the right plan by joining the UCP, making sure the majority of people within the UCP are independent supporters. And all we want is not for Danielle Smith to come out and support independence. We want the question on the October 19th ballot.
We want her to uphold democracy, true, real democracy, where the citizens are asking to be heard. which apparently Jen Gerson doesn't think or understand that it's important anymore.
And again, let's stay positive here, because Jen was awful angry there, and it doesn't come off good when you're that angry. And I think they're going to continue to try to use anger to make their points. We need to kind of stay calm, stay collective, and just come up with a game plan and strategies to push forward, to make sure that the question number one makes the ballot, but number two, we have strategies going into Edmonton and Calgary.
And also so we can start a national conversation, and we can only do that by being positive and highlighting why it's important for Alberta to separate, but to become independent. But let's go into specifically that, the Alberta Stay Free section.
Yeah.
Sweet home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And starting with from Rise of Alberta, Keith Wilson saying, quote, "The federalist position is simple. Stay in Canada, keep negotiating, and hope that Ottawa changes. But when Ottawa says no to equalization reform, no to pipelines, no to resource development, and no to Alberta's future, what is their plan? They do not have one. They can only say no."
Yeah, and Keith just lays it out fantastically here. I like to play Keith's commentary because he lays out things so legally and precise when he does speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the challenges that the Federalists have, those who keep telling us Albertans that we should just try and negotiate with Ottawa, for example, is they have no plan. They have no plan for when Ottawa just says, no, we're not changing equalization. We're not going to lift the tanker ban. We're not going to lift or change the No More Pipelines law. We're not going to soften on the ideological net zero. When Ottawa says, you're going to do what we tell you, and we don't care that it hurts your economy. We don't care that it's harmful to the future of your children and grandchildren. We don't care that you think we're spending recklessly. None of those who are Federalists who say Alberta should stay in Canada have offered any form of plan as to how they will fix Canada and how Canada will become better. The only plan that makes sense, the only plan that has a viable path, the only legal plan that exists for leverage, for achieving our potential and getting out of this dark period that we're in with Canada is through Alberta independence.
Yeah, and I will say Keith Wilson laid it out perfectly there. We had just gotten done interviewing Dallas Brody, and she had a similar sentiment. I wouldn't say the exact same sentiment, but she's much more Albertan politician than even BC. She's the only...
She has the spirit. She has the backbone.
She's the only one kind of standing up for true conservative values way out in BC there. The Conservatives are all trying to liberalize themselves.
Exactly. And again, even though it sounds a little bit negative, the overall messaging of Keith Wilson is positive, is that the only way, but there is a path forward, but the only way is to actually follow that path.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of other provinces are seeing that as well. And that's why a lot of Conservatives are moving to Alberta right now.
Yeah. But also, contrasting, we have from David Creighton, we have Jeff Rath, quote, "Alberta Independence Council, Jeff Rath explains why Premier Daniel Smith should not be campaigning for the Federalist cause."
And again, the federal side's putting pressure on Danielle Smith, and I think Jeff Rath's putting it on from the independent side. So Danielle Smith is being pulled in all directions so far, and she's walking a very good tightrope to this point.
And she's going to be linking arms with little Tommy the Commie Lukasik and Mr. Teletubby Denchi, and they're going to be going out campaigning together. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And like Danielle had better wake up, because this is not endearing her to her base. People are furious because there's a lot of people, like, you got to understand, and I think I've said this before, Danielle Smith is one of the most popular, most effective retail politicians that Alberta has ever seen, like since the days of Ralph Klein, right? We've never had a premier as popular as Danielle Smith. And a lot of people have really given her the benefit of the doubt on this independence thing. Oh, she's playing 4D chess. You'll see, she'll come around. She's going to be on our side. And of course, now everybody's being disabused of that notion, and the scales are falling off of their eyes, and they're literally seeing her for what she is, right? And
you can leave it there. We'll play a little bit more. Jeff Rath has a way with his words, and he's always been really hard on Danielle Smith. I still think firmly that she's going to allow one of these questions on the October 19th ballot, because her entire political future kind of rides on the fact that she's willing to back democracy in Alberta when the federal government completely disrespects democracy on a federal level with the way they form this majority government with floor crossers.
And again, I think the best thing that Danielle can and could do is to just continue to let democracy stand and to make a stand for democracy, even if she doesn't take full on a side or not. But we'll see it through her actions, I think, as well, not to fully defend her. And I do think that she is getting attacked on both sides, but that might actually help her stay down the center lane, essentially.
she's got to understand that if she keeps it up, she'll never form a government again. Like we have 17% of the vote in the last election signed our petition, right? She doesn't get elected without that 17%, right? So, and then on top of it, if you look at some of the rural riding counts in Alberta, let's look at Olds Didsbury as an example. Tara Sawyer in the last by-election was elected with 12,000 votes. Our signature count in Olds Didsbury is 12,000 votes. Rocky Mountain House Sundry, UCP candidate was elected with 18,000 votes, right? And we had 14,000 signatures in Rocky Mountain.
Okay, and we can leave it there. And I will say this. She's actually in a very good position, Danielle Smith, because there's two petitions: one of people that want to stay in Canada and one group that wants independence. And she can easily walk the line of democracy, saying, I have 700,000 votes. We need to have this question. Both nationalists and independence individuals want this question to be on this referendum. That's the main question that's plaguing Albertans at this point. So she doesn't have to pitch it as an independence question or a nationalist question. She can pitch it as both sides need to have this answered.
Exactly. But from CBC Watcher, quote, CBC really said, like, quote, let's go to Hamilton, Ontario to get a McMaster professor to explain the mushy middle of dumb Albertans who might vote for independence as a protest because they're just so gosh darn misinformed. Adrian Davidson solemnly warning that the rest of Canada about the disinformation and those gullible Western rubes who feel neglected by Ottawa. So let's see how they're framing it.
Well, and I'll say more and more, Keith Wilson noticed this as well. It's almost 60% strongly against 56%. That means we don't have much of a mushy middle there. We're really going to have to go into Calgary and Edmonton and convince people that are actually pretty firmly against independence at this point. So we're going to have interesting strategies going forward into those communities.
This fall, one that would ask whether Alberta should leave Canada. The signatures still need to be verified. Public opinion polls suggest about a quarter of Albertans support independence. Adrian Davidson's been watching this. She's an assistant professor of political science at McMaster University. Adrian, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How seriously should we in the rest of the country look at the push for Alberta independence?
I think we should take it very seriously. The separatists have been moving this forward with a real clip. They say now that they have enough signatures to have a referendum on this question in the fall. And while the numbers...
And we got to say, for mainstream media, this is about as fair reporting as we're going to get from our side. So I didn't mind this clip as much as a lot of the other clips I've been playing the last few days, which are completely one-sided and biased.
Still say that only around 25% of Albertans strongly support the move to separate. There is a mushy middle that I think would be open to this conversation, and that's who the separatists are going to be going after, I think, in the lead up to a true referendum in the fall.
You talk about a mushy middle, and I think back to Brexit, when some people wanted to send a message to the central government that they were unhappy with the current relationship. Well, I could transpose that question onto the case of Alberta, which has long had grievances with Ottawa, with the central government, many people in Alberta. Is there a risk that some people, if a referendum happens, vote yes as a protest, and then we get a different outcome than they might have imagined?
Certainly that's a risk. Now, within the polling, I think there's still a comfortable margin in favor of no. That said, around 60% of Albertans say that they feel that the province is neglected by the federal government. Around 45% of Albertans say that they identify first with a provincial identity ahead of a Canadian identity. And around 15% of Albertans say that they would vote to separate as a way to send a message to the federal government.
And the fact that they're actually mentioning these talking points, and this is actually fairly good analysis from the mainstream media. And again, she's a political scientist, so maybe they didn't clue her in that she should actually tell the truth here. But a lot of the talking points that she's saying right here, we should be listening to on the independent side as well, if we want to appeal to that protest vote.
And also seeing all those numbers as potential to be able to go and actually convince those people and understand what the concerns are, so you can specifically target those that are in the, as she mentions, mushy middle, and those that do see a problem but are still unsure of how to act about it.
Well, and we have to say one more thing here. The question isn't actually on a ballot for October 19th yet. Once that happens, I think we're going to see a flood of support where it becomes a reality, especially in the youth mind. The youth are so politically disenfranchised now. They're not going to believe this vote is going to happen until we actually have the question on the ballot. So once that happens, you're going to see a lot of supporters from a lot of demographics really start to chatter, really start to talk online spaces as well. And you will see that national conversation start to really rise at that point.
But again, hopefully, I think the best idea is to act as if that isn't going to happen, as if there is not going to be a youth push. So we have to go to the youth, as if there's not going to be a female push. So we have to go to the women. All of this is actually better to take it as, oh, it's not going to happen unless we act on it and act on it yesterday, essentially.
And it's this group that feels antipathy towards the federal government, who has strong provincial attachment, and who might vote in favor of a referendum, to send that kind of a message. This is where the separatist movement, I think, will be focusing their campaign efforts ahead of a vote. And this is where I think you could start to see movement in favor of a yes to leave.
I think back to Brexit, which is just more contemporary than some of the sovereignty referendums that have happened in Quebec. But I think back to Brexit, and there was a lot of information, some of it misinformation, on both sides of that debate. And it was the information that people used to inform the decision that they would make. Are you seeing, in the question of Alberta sovereignty, misinformation that's spreading out there as well?
Nothing that strikes me as being too remarkable yet. However, we're only in the early conversations right now of what...
And honest enough reply, but the misinformation that's coming out is coming all from the mainstream media. Yeah. They've talked about the AI and a ton of other talking points that just aren't true. I think that's why they're not pointing it out. But the fact that she didn't imply that independent media is making outrageous claims, saying that means we're playing a pretty good game to this point, and there's nothing to kind of point at.
This looks like, right? I think once a date is set, once separatists have a clear sense of the sort of timeline they're working in towards a vote, that's where we're going to see a lot more political messaging, a lot more opportunity for political misinformation. We're going to see the advent of more third-party advertisers, third parties sort of engaging in these conversations and trying to sway voters towards their message. And I think that's where we're going to start to see separate misinformation come in, potentially much more acutely.
Okay, and we can leave it there. And yeah, overall, decent analysis for the mainstream media. And I think we should take heed to some of that polling as well. Now, I think the polling's a lot higher. It's around 35%. But even in mainstream media's polling compared to Rebel News's polling, it's all the same demographics and the same demographics that we're kind of seeing. So we need to focus on these specific groups, whether it's Calgary, Edmonton, women. Women's going to be a big vote in the big city. It makes up 50% of that city. We don't have to get all of them. We just need about 15-20%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the task isn't that daunting when you break it down like that. But again, it is important to think there is still a task ahead. And there's a lot of things that can be done, and not to close ourselves off to in-the-box thinking. We've been trying to do a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. Some of it not everybody will agree with, which is fine. But just being able to spitball these ideas and have them out in the open instead of behind closed doors, because then more ideas can surge, and more ideas from you, from anybody, from people you talk to on the street, can also come up with something that might be way more effective than if it's just confined to in-the-box thinking.
Yeah, we really need to blow out the Overton window so we can at least have a conversation with radical campaign ideas, normal campaign ideas, and people can't be afraid to speak. This is why we have group chats, and we encourage people to kind of voice any strategies they have. One of our viewers suggested we do a countdown into October 19th, so everybody knows when that date is. It's on every thumbnail now. We're open to ideas, and so is the movement.
Thank you so much, Steve Surfaro. And Steve knows a lot about this, actually, saying, quote, "Too big to rig. Everyone, including intelligent pets, must sign, poll, and vote."
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat.
And I will say, I was talking to Nat about you last night, Steve, and we found one of your old messages in our spam box.
Yes.
And that's what
we hadn't replied.
Yeah, we hadn't replied. We didn't know it was there. And then we went and subscribed to your ex there. So it's great to see you again.
Exactly.
And yeah, he's absolutely right about that. And Steve is actually a supporter from Arizona. He's been involved in a lot of campaigns in the United States.
I think Arizona.
Arizona, yeah.
Okay, Arizona then. And hold on.
I think lived in quite a few places in the States, though.
Yes. Sorry, I got
You're
distracted.
confused. She's been up since 4 a.m. She's a little confused right
Trying to
now.
find messages. But thank you so much, Steve. And if you're interested, you can go follow Steve at Steve Surf on X.
Well, yeah, not only go follow him, he recently ran into a cancellation himself. So he lost a lot of his subscribers. Anybody that can go support him is a big help against censorship. So we can bring free speech not only to Canada, but to the United States as well.
Exactly. And Stephen Jensen says, thank you so much for the $2 Rumble Rant, they're called. Says, John Bolton interview with Keith Wilson was great this morning.
It was absolutely fantastic. And we use a program when we do our interviews. What's the name of it?
Video Ninja.
Video Ninja. So it's a free program, and hopefully other content creators that are doing interviews and things like that may start using it because it is a free program. You don't have to buy time on Zoom and stuff like that. I thought John Bolton's interview was absolutely fantastic. The only criticism I had was I would have wanted to see it much, much longer because him and Keith had an absolute great back and forth, and they have a comfortable relationship with each other too.
And thank you so much to Smile to Life Every Day for the $10 super chat. Thank you for a great laugh showing the clip with Jeffrey talking about Teletubby Nenshi. And thank you for sharing the clip with the whistleblower. And I do think while we don't want to highlight Jen Gerson too much, I do think it is important to see where her line of thought continues to go, because we are seeing it creep out into the mainstream and some of the tactics and ideas that both Jason Kenney and Nenshi and other politicians have started to bring up as well. Aside from the whole, the data breach thing, now they're talking about this being an undemocratic process, which is outrageous to me that they're trying to say that as politicians themselves, but whatever.
She has the best talking points on the left. That's why I go listen to her. Don't subscribe to her if you go watch her channel, but it's good to know where the politicians are going because the politicians are looking to the thought leaders. She happens to be one of the thought leaders on the left, even though I don't like her. I've identified her as that. She also lives in Alberta, so she's going to have her ear to the street, and it's important that we watch what she's saying. I already know the next 4 dots that she's trying to connect, and I see Nenshi and Jason Kenney kind of connecting those dots for her in the political realm right now.
And now let me try to read some of your other lovely messages, but then we'll go into Alberta politics. Thank you so much to everybody for the Rumble Rants and the Super Chats. Justin GP says, and it's a good show too. The Jason Levine Show. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
This morning we had the opportunity to be interviewed by Jason and Paula on the Tea and Coffee? No.
Yeah, Tea and Coffee
Tea and
podcast.
Coffee podcast. Sorry. It's been a really early morning for me because of the interview, but it was wonderful. And we look forward to having them as well on Friday with us. It's going to be a pre-recorded interview, but we do want to talk about strategies moving forward with them specifically.
And we're going to pump out quite a few interviews next week because they're starting to build up in our back catalog. We were only delivering them on Wednesday and Sunday. We have too many now. We're just going to start pushing them out almost every day next week.
Yes. Roland Halleck, hello, says Tommy's question should not be on at all. Should not be on at all, but none are certifiable.
No, I completely disagree with that. We need to, I'm sorry, but we need to leave both doors open to both our question and Tommy's question for multiple reasons. Number one, if the ideological judge shuts the door on our question, Danielle Smith can go with Tommy's question and reword it because it doesn't meet the Clarity Act. But number two, if both questions stay open, it gives Danielle Smith the best way to pitch it to Albertans and to National Canada as both sides, both people that want to stay in Canada and people that want to leave in Canada. I have 700 signatures here. I have a mandate to put this on the October 19th ballot. She's firmly in the nationalist camp. So we have to make sure we give her the easiest path to put a question on that October 19th ballot.
Yes. Al Norman says that lady will be the first patient in the first insane asylum in the new country of Alberta. Bring back insane asylums. That should be another campaign as well because they are needed and it's outrageous that they were taken out. But hold on. Steve Safaro, thank you so much again for the $9.99 super chat saying, when you vote, if your ballot does not scan on the second round, demand to use the accessibility voting terminal that eliminates the paper.
Well, and I think it may be just pencil or pen and ballot. I don't think there's any electronic voting machines in Alberta specifically. That's not for the rest of National Canada, but Danielle Smith cleared up a lot of this stuff, and she has done a lot of things to help this independence vote go forward.
And again, Steve, coming from the U.S., has those aftershocks of...
Well,
the elections.
Not just that, I literally pointed out what happened in Arizona to Kerry Lake and how they closed down polling stations. And I've taken note of that. And I'm urging people in Alberta to know where their backup polling station is, because after that Arizona election, a lot of pollsters try to figure out what happened here. And the fact was they called a lot of these people. And what they said was, yeah, I went to go vote that day. The polling booth was closed and I never went back later or went to a second polling station. So we have to be prepared in case polling stations get closed down for any reason.
Mm-hmm. But thank you so much, Steve Surfaro. And again, his X account is at Steve Surf, STEVESURF, in case you want to follow him.
And Steve left another question as well.
Where?
Just above the one you just read.
I read that one.
No, he's left 3 questions so far.
No.
Yes. Oh no, that was Smile
to Life Every Day.
Oh,
Yeah, I read that.
My
one.
bad.
Thank you.
I seen the S and I thought it was the same person.
Don Nedelik says, let's push for that. Don Nedelik says, asylum that is, maybe deprogramming. A nice padded room. Let's just say that.
Well, also we have to realize we need to reach women in the cities. That's Calgary and Edmonton. We have to come up for strategies like that. Some of them may be radical, but we have to kind of break the cognitive dissonance. And if we can get immigrant groups and other groups to come into the cities and show that they actually support independence, it kind of really starts to make them question what they support and what they don't support and why.
Thank you so much to Teresa McCleary for the $20 super chat, saying, all slow roller with this independence. Please be aware of the lefties posting a roll from Calgary to the Coots border on May 16th. This is not our team and is a countrywide event to block the borders. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Also, roller with the independence. With this independence, lefties are posting a roll from Calgary to Coots border on May 16. So beware of the May 16.
Yeah, they're going to want to try to wrap up some people that aren't aware they're not part of our team to not go on that roll. So.
Thank you for letting us know, though, Teresa McCleary. And hold on, I'm getting to Are You and Bailey again. I have to jump between tabs. Thank you so much. Who are you? I can't read.
And
Rafa. It's Rafa. I don't have my contacts yet because, again, the Mexican Postal Service does not function in this country. But thank you so much, Rafa. And thank you so much for being here. Rafa, for the $5 Rumble rant, saying, hi, Nat and Guy, just came to say hello so you don't forget about me. Yesterday, I said that I miss you. And the guy got jealous.
I didn't get jealous. I said you never miss me.
Because I see you 24/7. 24/8.
That being said, Rafa is one of our longest supporters. When there was literally nobody in the chat, he would leave comments, and it really helped us to keep going in some of our darkest moments. We've been doing this for 4 years, and we've had a lot of failures to get where we're at now.
Yes.
And we're nowhere near successful, but I remember when there was one person in the chat, and it was Rafa. So thank you.
And believe me, Rafa, we could never forget about you. And yes, the Spanish channel will eventually start up again, because it is important over here as well to start talking about these things too.
Okay.
And hold on. Thank you so much to Stephen. Is it Stephen Jensen? I can't see again.
Come on, Nat.
Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 Rumble rant as well. Saying, sounds like lefties' narrative about list is collapsing. Then shit and commie and carnage are our best talking points. And that's what we've been saying as well.
But we have to pay attention to this narrative that Ninchi, Jen from The Line, and Jason Kinney are building, because behind that is actually a national politician. We covered on the show twice now. It's a national petition going out for signatures in national Canada, not just inside Alberta. So they should be able to accomplish that. And they're wanting an investigation into a lot of things that could delay the Stay Free petition. So
yeah. I'll continue reading your comments after the next section, but let's go into Alberta politics. Speaking of.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And starting with, starting with from Yukon Strong, saying the data is quite clear. It takes 10 Canadian workers to support 1 migrant. And Danielle Smith here speaking on that. And again, this is a good point to bring up, because as we try to start a national conversation, interestingly, this is one of the main issues that the multiple polls within Alberta have signaled as something that people are concerned about. but also in Quebec. And also the independence movement in Quebec has been speaking a lot about this too.
Well, that's why Danielle Smith is trying to fix a lot of these issues that she's seen in the polling. She's trying to fix them to say, oh, I fixed them, we can stay part of Canada. What we need to say is Danielle Smith is making small adjustments to fix these things, but what we want to do in independence is permanently fix these issues, and not having a federal government working against us allows us to do that. So we don't need to degrade anything Danielle Smith is doing, because she's literally reading the same polling and say, I got to fix this, and this. What we should be saying is she's doing a great job, but we want to go to a much further extent and fix this permanently.
Actually fix it.
Yeah.
Is that we believe that we should return to what guest workers were meant to do. Guest workers were meant to provide additional revenue for the province, and they were also meant to fill gaps that couldn't be filled by Alberta workers or Canadian workers. And I think we've gotten quite a far way from that kind of approach, especially when we look at the dollars. We did
It's a pretty low clip.
Sorry for the volume on the clip. I'm going to play it. You're just going to have to turn it up for this one clip. We'll let it play all the way through so our voices don't come in really loud.
So we don't scream in your ear.
A rough calculation of what guest workers and their families cost our system. And it's about a minimum of $400 million when we look at ER and doctor visits, as well as surgeries. There were 35,000 visits in the 2024 year that we looked at. It may be higher in 2025. We have 45,544 children of temporary workers who are in our education system. Is another 600 million. Social services like childcare subsidy, Alberta Child and Family Benefits, student aid, we estimate will cost $100 million for temporary residents. So we're well over $1 billion in cost. And yet in that same year, those same...
Okay, and we can leave it there just because the clip is so bad, but leave it up because I want to talk about the heading there. And it takes 10 Canadian workers to support one migrant. We should be supporting our retirees, the people that need CPP. We should be supporting single mothers, veterans, people that actually need support that are citizens. We should not be spending 10 Canadian workers for one migrant. This does not make us a stronger country. Migrants should be adding to the country, not taking away from it. And that's why we need a new immigration system. The old Canada's immigration system wasn't necessarily a bad one. It was based upon a point system. And if you came to the country, we expected you to be a net benefit, not a net deduction. And I think that's what Albertans want again.
And not just bringing people in to fill in numbers and try to pump up the GDP numbers, even though that doesn't actually increase anything worthwhile for citizens themselves.
Well, and let's remember, this is the number one issue when polled in Alberta is mass migration and immigration, as well as in Quebec. So, and I'm sure... Well, I mean, when we're interviewing Dallas Brody today, that was one of the big issues that kept coming up as well. It's obviously destroying every province in Canada. The difference with Alberta and every other province, we have an opportunity to change things in a timely fashion through a vote for independence.
But Yukon Strong also says, quote, separatist movements don't gain traction immediately. They start as an idea, then they dormant as an option until the right catalyst comes along and blows everything apart.
And again, I'm sorry for the clip quality here. Nadine did a great interview here. This was the best clip I could find of this particular interview.
But the fact is, the election is determined in Ontario and Quebec. And once the election hits the Manitoba border, it's over. Albertans need to understand, when they go to the polls, they're going because that's a part of democracy. And we all should participate in democracy. Everybody should participate. I would never discourage anybody from going to polls. But you need to know that when you get there and cast that ballot, it means nothing, absolutely nothing, in terms of the policy that comes out of Central Canada. You have no control of that. And so when they decide that they're going to take all of your rights from you, you have no way to stop them. But the fact
okay, and this is a very important talking point, especially going into Calgary and Edmonton. And it's something that's been getting on my nerves from globalists and liberals and Democrats around the world. And that is democracy, democracy, democracy. That's what they keep talking about, but they've twisted the word to mean something else. When the system doesn't work for them, they want democracy, but when they get in power, they want authoritarianism. What we're trying to get in Alberta right now is actual real democracy through the people, through a petition that we deliver to the premier, and then she puts that on a ballot for whether we want independence or we want to stay. We want real democracy within Alberta. Why is this such an effective talking point? Because Democrats and globalists around the world have drilled it into people's head, especially in the cities, how important democracy is. So if we can pitch ourselves as the movement that really has democracy behind us, and that's what we're seeking, I think it will work well in cities.
Specifically because, as Jen Gerson was saying, the whistleblower and main apparently thought leader that is giving all the talking points to the rest of the politicians within Alberta, maybe even all of Canada, they don't think this is a democratic process. But if you just read the definition of democracy to them, and which is a reason why I also stopped using the word democracy, because it's been twisted so much and they've changed the definition itself that it no longer actually makes an impact or matters. But in this case, we can actually use it against them, against their talking point.
Don't let them steal the word democracy, because we're going to need it going into Calgary and Edmonton. And this word works well on Liberals and people that aren't supporting Alberta independence at this point. So don't let them take this narrative and frame it as we're the anti-democracy movement, because we're not. It's going to pay dividends going into Calgary and Edmonton for us to control the framing on that particular word.
Mm-hmm. And from Sunshiny saying, quote, "Oh, shoot, this is really, really bad. It's a crime for DP to have unauthorized access to former Premier Kenney's data. Someone is either being set up for obstruction of justice or is attempting obstruction of justice by claiming they didn't know."
And again, this is going into the narrative they're trying to build right now with Ninchi, with Jason Kenney here. This is going to be another reason Jason Kenney may use as an excuse to not go into the second debate, because he got so thoroughly destroyed. I mean, there are rumors coming, swirling out on the ground that he did his best and he tried to frame it within economics, but he failed.
Surprise, surprise.
So to be clear, the United Conservative Party, the Premier's own staff, knew of the data breach as early as April 16th. But the Premier claims she had no idea. But to ask a very...
What he's laying out right now, word for word, I'm hearing a lot of other commentators saying Ninchi's doing this, Ninchi's doing that. This is the direction they're going. Jen from the line laid out these points a week ago, and now these politicians are literally laying out the dots in real time. They're coming much slower, but she literally laid out the entire game plan on her freaking podcast. If once I watch that, it's almost like I'm watching the future here. I already know what they're going to do.
The past.
Very simple question then to the Premier. Did she know, or are her own staff keeping her in the dark?
No, I didn't know.
But as a demo, David Parker showed how to find the personal information on specific people. And one of the people he showed in that video was former Premier Jason Kenney. So the Premier's staff and the president of her party sat there while Jason Kenney's data was being shown to random people and stolen. They sat there. So to be clear.
Okay, and what's the point of all this? Because we should just be letting it play it out in court. The point I see is we have an ideological judge that has already stayed the Stay Free petition once. She could possibly use this as an excuse to keep staying this until there's more of an investigation, until she has more information, until whatever it is. Even though Stay Free Alberta's petition wasn't involved in any of this, an ideological judge will use this as an excuse to keep staying it until it's past the time we can get it on an October 19th ballot. This is also why it's important to leave the door open for Lukaszik's question.
Mm-hmm. As much as we really don't like him.
Yeah.
But now I'll go into some of your comments and then we'll move on to the Alberta Personalities section. Michael Drader says, Albexicans, again, which is what we are, never appreciated 4D chess. I'm more of a poker fan and I wouldn't want to play Danielle at poker. She would make me fold a flush to her 2 pair. I don't play poker, so I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means?
Well, Danielle Smith is just playing this game on every level. She's walked a very tight rope. Pierre Poilievre just absolutely shit all over himself when he took a stance against Alberta independence. When she took the stance of, well, I'm going to let democracy play itself out, and people in Alberta have a lot of grievances right now. And she clearly stated she was a nationalist, but she's a nationalist in favor of democracy, which even people on the independent side can respect.
On the anti-independent side. Or on both sides.
On both sides.
Todd said...
She's setting herself up well to take control of the Conservative Party one day. But her political future, again, rides on the fact if she can get this question on the October 19th ballot.
Mm-hmm. Todd says, I could say the same assertion about the CBC corrupt evil agenda with Mark unintentionally misinformed and straight propaganda levels, the same as Russia or higher CBC propaganda, only all of it. Yes. Free Alberta from Commies says, and I love that username too, says, you guys have a free room at my place if you come to Edmonton in the next 5 months. I need a headquarters to operate out of. Lol. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
I'm trying to help campaign as much as possible, really hoping to see major ads. And we're also talking about, with Jason and Paula, about we are planning on heading up to Alberta and maybe even doing a tour with them around, or being able to speak to people on the ground as well.
Absolutely.
And setting it up with them too. Todd says, wrong, CBC, come to Alberta, you idiots, and get on the ground. They are plain wrong and lying. Exactly, Todd, saying what we all think. Justin GP says, if you're able, please donate to the APP as soon as you are able. There will be donation regulations once the question is approved, writ dropped.
Yeah, absolutely. Because right now we're in an in-between time where there's not a lot of regulations on donations and things like that. So the APP donating to them right now is a big help to the movement. And the secondary thing that we're currently working on is having everybody within independence join the UCP. It's a $10 fee. And that allows us to have a lot of control inside and put pressure on Danielle Smith to make sure she knows if she wants to continue her political career inside of Alberta, she better make sure that question arises on October 19th.
And that she has the opportunity to make history, again, just by letting democracy stand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a good line of ways to convince her.
Absolutely.
In particular. But let's go into Alberta Personalities. And again, I'll continue reading all your lovely comments after the section.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
And, hold on. I didn't.
And we found a clip of one of our viewers,
Maybe.
a closer clip. So I said, oh man, I got to grab that because we talked about this on yesterday's show.
Igor says, Alberta's strong and free. And we did see, again, when they were handing in the signatures, the Saskatchewan flag as well, which was encouraging too.
Absolutely fantastic that we've seen unity with a Saskatchewan flag out there. That's what we like to see. It's going to help in a national conversation, and it makes it really hard to pigeonhole when you see Saskatchewan flags flying with Albertan flags.
Yeah, and maybe other provinces too. But let's go into Viva Fry saying, quote, Canadians are literally dying, waiting in overcrowded hospital emergency rooms. Quick, let's give another $270 million to Ukraine, says the globalist.
Yeah, and I kind of brought this up because Viva Fry has been a big inspiration to a lot of people that got into freedom movements. I think he inspired Jason Levine. He also inspired us as well.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, 500,000 Canadians left an emergency room in Canada without seeing a doctor after waiting for hours. My wife was one of them. She almost died. She was bleeding. She was waiting for 6 hours to see a doctor. Our son was 2 days old. I'm very happy that she made it, but many patients and families were not so lucky as my wife and I. Stacey Ross died in Winnipeg. Prashant Srikumar died in Edmonton. Alison Holthoff in Nova Scotia. Finley Van Wert.
Yeah, and there was another reason I brought this up. So let's just leave this on the screen. And I want to see what the audience thinks here, because I absolutely don't like all the money that's being spent in Ukraine. But it's, especially with liberals and liberal circles in cities, they seem to be all for it, which I can't figure why. It's a money laundering pit to me. I don't know if it's a good talking point to bring up within Edmonton and Calgary specifically, or do we leave that out? There's certain arguments when we go into Edmonton and Calgary, we need to leave out because we could poison pill ourselves by throwing spaghetti at the wall and having every argument kind of a barrage. If we say the wrong argument, sometimes that's going to activate somebody to vote against us.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a very
strategic
and targeted messaging, I would say. There's a way to do it because, again, we still can't think of any reasons for Alberta to stay within Canada. They will try to give them or give insults. But if you're able to target specific things that people are already concerned about that would be answered within a free and independent Alberta, then that is an in, that you can at least plant that seed in their heads as well. And I realized this was for Alberta's Canada.
And I realized you went into, Nat went into the next section. We're going to go back into comments, and then we'll go into Alberta's Canada.
Back into Alberta's Canada. But I mean, again, I guess Viva Fry is also an interesting and important character.
Viva's definitely a supporter of independence because he's talked at some of the events virtually. So I think once this becomes a real question on that October 19th ballot, you're going to see a lot more content creators that have very big profiles really start to talk about this.
And thank you so much to Independence Alberta for the 5 gifted subscriptions to Nat and the guy over on RUMBLE and saying, there you guys are. Wonderful interview this morning with Jay and Paula. And thank you so much for being here, for watching the interview, and for the 5 gifted memberships. Again, we usually on YouTube don't have the memberships site open because we want all the information out there. On RUMBLE, they're on because I actually didn't know how to turn them off. But thank you so much, and we'll keep them on. But thank you so much, and KP4U and a bunch of you got gifted memberships. So thank you so
all.
much.
We really appreciate it.
It really helps. And KP4U says, thanks. What do I do with my gift? You're supporting us, and thank you so much. Hold on. Todd says, all they do, sorry, I was trying to figure out the typo there. All they do is assertions, no facts or experience to accurately report. CBC morons, all of them. Really going hard at the CBC, rightfully so, I would say.
Yeah, and we talked about this on Jason Levine this morning, and he was asking about the mainstream media, and I said they have cookie cutter talking points, and they use them over and over and over again. So if we can identify who the thought leaders are and who's kind of driving a narrative, it actually happens to be Jen from The Line, because that's where all these talking points are coming from. We'll know exactly where their game plan is kind of going before the politicians even know where it's going. And we have a real grassroots movement where we're having organic conversation and discussion about like, how are we going to campaign? How are we going to campaign? How are we going to counter message? How are we going to do these things? We're very quick to pivot and very organic in the way we're building this movement. So
yes. Justin GP says, also, my empty furnished 2-bedroom apartment is available in Grand Prairie for speakers, as well as 2 more bedrooms in my house. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And everybody is making it a lot easier for us, because we're definitely going up there. Yes. But we just got to figure out times with Jason Levine, I think, to maximize what we do when we're there.
And with our planning as well. Todd says, all they do, continuing about the CBC, all they do is spew their agenda opinion, not journalistic reporting. They just reveal how they feel about it, and also how much they are just a propaganda arm of the federal government, and that they're subsidized. It just becomes too obvious at this point.
Well, and I wouldn't just necessarily say they're spewing emotions out there. There are actually game plans on the Federalist side. One has to do with the national petition calling for an investigation inside of Alberta, and they're trying to connect a lot of the talking points on mainstream media, so it kind of backs up that petition if they get the number of signatures they need to possibly delay or close the door on one of the questions for the October 19th referendum. So I think there is a little bit of strategy on the mainstream media and the nationalist side, and that's why I'm kind of trying to pay attention to it.
Exactly. As much as we don't like it or like to have to publicize it. Justin GP says the only goal... Sorry, hold on. Again, I woke up really early today. Justin GP says the only goal is a yes vote, regardless of one's fringe issues. Set them aside for the yes vote, please. And I think that is the perfect line of thinking and the best way to go into the campaign season as well, because it also allows you to expand your mind as to what talking points or what specific points might work for somebody that might not already be convinced.
Well, and I will say I watch a lot of leftist media to know what the talking points are. And I also, because I watch it and I'm watching for Alberta Independence News, what their talking points are on that, what I'm able to see are fractures in the left, and they're starting to emerge. And it took almost a year, but they're a little bit discontent with Carney and his economic strategy and the fact that he hasn't had anything happen with the USMCA. Now he keeps saying elbows up, but I think elbows up is starting to get a little old even for them. So we need to pay attention to fracturing that's happening on the left, because that may help us for messaging when we go into Alberta and Calgary, especially if it revolves around economics. And that's what I'm kind of seeing right now.
Richard Hayes says, I want an independent Alberta, but I think Jeff is a liability quite often. He needs to be more careful of what he says. Being a clown doesn't get votes.
Well, sometimes I might agree with that, but he's a different voice, and we have a lot of different voices within Alberta Independence. Keith is great. Jeff is great. Mitch Sylvester is great as well, and they all have different strengths and stuff like that. You put Jeff in front of the mainstream media with an interview, we've seen him do it 2 or 3 times, literally run circles around them like he was the Donald Trump from Alberta. They don't know how to deal with it. And now they don't want to invite him back anymore because he's just too much of a loose cannon for them. He puts them on their back foot. So in certain circumstances, Jeff is good. I kind of called out Jeff yesterday as well because him and Corey Morgan were having a little bit of bickering. I try to avoid it as much as possible. I like Jeff. I like Corey. Let's put our differences aside so we can put Alberta independence first. And I'm hoping, and I think that message is coming from a lot of people. And Jeff ultimately in his heart wants independence as well.
And again, I think having that variety of voices and even inviting more in and the libertarian voices, the voices that might actually get the people in the cities to pay attention, because the messaging will have to be very different. And different people work for different audiences with different messages. And I think having the most and not bickering with each other as well is what's going to be the most effective too, because on the left, they don't have different voices. They have one voice from up on high that gives all the rest of the talking points and gives all their feelings and their thoughts directly to them. So if we can have that variety of voices, I would say the more the merrier, essentially.
What I'm going to say, yeah, she's putting it in one context where we need the variety of voices. I would say we don't just need the variety of voices. We need to know where to position those voices. Mm-hmm. Jeff works very, very good rurally. So does Mitch. People like Nadine, Bruce Party are going to work very good in the cities. We need to make sure, because we have so many personalities, they're very specifically directed to maximize the transition of people from one side to another, or get people to vote on October 19th.
Exactly.
So yeah, we definitely do need Jeff. We definitely do need all the other voices, but we need to start directing them at this point.
And we also need the engaged citizens, everybody that was a canvasser, everybody that wants to get involved or speak to their neighbors or just bring up these conversations to further have the conversation and the debate just among citizens. And yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Sorry. My head went somewhere else. I'm half here. Okay, let's go into what's next?
Alberta's Canada. Skip the first story because you already played
I already went on to it. But let's go into Alberta's Canada.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And okay, I'm skipping that one. And starting with Mocha Bizergan, I hope.
And Mocha's been doing a fantastic job reporting on things that are going inside of Alberta, especially in a lot of these small towns that normally would have been ignored. But even when he's been reporting on national Canada, he's an absolute asset to not just Alberta, but Canada in general.
Yes, and specifically with this story as well, which is outrageous, says, quote, Canadian political scientist criticizes MMIWG2S plus narrative on violence against Aboriginal women. Dr. Frances Widdowson attended the Red Dress event in Calgary, Alberta, organized by the Alphabet Soup advocates to honor missing and not longer with us Aboriginal women.
We can go into the clip. Yes. Nat's having a little bit of trouble today.
Thanks.
Aboriginal men, 86%, I believe, of Aboriginal women are murdered by Aboriginal men. That's now the latest statistic.
MMIWG2S Plus community members gathered today at Calgary's Confluence Historic Site for a solemn event to remember missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Among the attendees was a prominent dissident voice, Dr. Frances Widdowson, a longtime critic of what she describes as the Aboriginal industry.
The Aboriginal industry is a group of consultants and lawyers who work at diverting funds from the Aboriginal communities that need to be able to access services. They're diagnosing the problem as one of racism and colonialism, when it's really the violence, the terrible violence that exists in Aboriginal communities.
And Dallas Brody brought this up a lot in our interview that we did with her today. And it's good that she's not the only voice. This voice as well was in BC doing a lot of protests there and speaking up. The more of us that speak up, the easier it is on the politicians that are in positions to take these kind of positions.
86%, I believe, of Aboriginal women are murdered by Aboriginal men. That's now the latest statistic. There's a higher level of prostitution amongst the Aboriginal female population. And of course, prostitutes are very vulnerable people. And then finally, Aboriginal men their incarceration times are reduced according, I think it's called Gladio principles, where they have lesser prison sentences. So they go back into the communities. So you're releasing violent men back into Aboriginal communities. So all of those things contribute to the high murder rates of Aboriginal women.
And it's good she can talk about these hard subjects in a way that it really brings up the cold, hard facts there.
Yes.
So,
and those are the specific cold, hard facts that nobody really wants to delve into or talk about because it becomes uncomfortable for a lot of people. But it is the brave people with a spine that are able to do that are the most important as well. So that's why it was also outrageous that in Alberta University tried to get her got her trespassed.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you expect things like this in BC. You don't expect things like that in an Alberta university. And this is it's just another glaring, obvious fact of why we need Alberta independence.
Exactly. And finally, Jasmine Lane says, quote, are they suggesting everyone who voted for Mark Carney to explicitly get a deal with America and reduce or remove tariffs like he promised shouldn't have believed him? Why didn't they have this type of criticism and takes during the election campaign? The elbows up.
News here. As for, the idea that we have to do these things, and I think the minister laid it out fairly well. We didn't ask for 50% tariffs on steel or 25% on derivatives. You have to be there to support your industries. You can't let the jobs go. You can't let the plants go. And while I think the Conservatives might come across as a little, a little bit whiny when they say, this is an indication that there's no trade deal. I don't think that anybody, if the Prime Minister or Avi Lewis said that we're going to get a trade deal within the next 6 months, I don't think any Canadian would believe them. I think that right now, and we saw this on the weekend with Mr. Poilievre's, kind of critique of the spring economic update and the deficit. I don't think that there's a Canadian out there who would say this is too much for steel, this is too much for aluminum and the other sectors that have been hard hit. The real question is will this be enough? I mean, the industry leader that you had on before talking about are all the tools in the toolkit, because this 50% tariff is just decimating this industry. Softwood lumber's been going down for a long time. That's more of a structural challenge that we've got with the Americans. But this shock that the steel and aluminum sectors have faced.
And when you see Liberals talking about this on mainstream media, that is a fracture. The same conversation is going on in their alternative media space to even more of a degree, pretty much on a daily basis. If they fail to get the USMCA renewed or Trump continues to put pressure on there, these are going to be great talking points going into Calgary and Alberta. Another thing here is Jasmine Lane was the one that put that up. But if we can bring a lot of adjacent issues to Alberta independence up within BC, you're going to have you have a lot of content creators that are very, very big within British Columbia, where you're eventually going to be able to hopefully merge a lot of the conversations. So Alberta independence is brought up more and more in the mainstream alternative media.
Exactly. But now I'll go back into your comments and then we'll head over into Alberta and the world. Free Alberta from Commie says, how do we donate to the APP? Jess asking. So I'm going to answer it when Jess answers. Canadian Spider-Man says, hello and good morning. Hello.
And we've seen Jess on Jason Levine this morning in the comments. So absolutely fantastic to see you over there.
Exactly.
I think we talked about you in the after show a little bit.
Yes. Justin GB says you can donate to the APP directly on their website, Alberta Prosperity Project. Look for the donate tab. Jess also says once the writ question is dropped, we are confined to Elections Alberta rules for donations. Also, APP donations will not be public because they are not tax deductible, so no one knows you donate. Justin GB also says you can donate to the APP directly on the page on their website.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'm glad, and this is those situations where I'm glad we have such a knowledgeable audience. A lot of the time, if we needed to contact somebody, I would ask our audience. They would help us out. When we're asking for grassroots ideas for campaigning, our audience, again, is bringing up great ideas. And I didn't know where to donate, so.
Steve Zavaro says, it's too late for the U.S. as far as the democracy term. You folks understand democracy is sovereignty of the people. Switzerland allows direct constitutional amendment proposals from citizens. The U.S. being a constitutional republic is a common but misunderstood talking point. Talatalk says the U.S. is a republic.
What did they say?
Talatalk says the U.S. is a republic.
Well, and I'm all like, something that happened in Canada is we've had an acceleration theory happen on the ground. The Liberals have taken it so far progressive and started flooding mass migration in that even the policies the regular citizens wouldn't vote for, they were able to continuously get them passed. And now what has that caused? It caused a complete fracturing where the only way to save Western values or to save the citizens of certain provinces is for independence. That's where we're at. It's because the federal government has really used acceleration theory, and now we're at the end result here.
And exactly, all that I'd say is scam migration.
Yeah.
one of the things.
And
they've
you better
used.
believe they're going to use it in Alberta because they used it in Quebec in 1995. And the PQ is talking about that constantly. We brought up that interview when they interviewed with the Western Standard, and that's a specific topic they brought up. That's why we need to appeal to national conservatives across Canada rather than leave to the United States like they've been doing in the hundreds of thousands year after year. Come to Alberta, vote for independence, vote for freedom. Let's save Western values together.
Move to Alberta.
And if the vote doesn't go our way, you can always use the United States or Mexico as a backup plan.
Tall Talk says the U.S. founders were well aware of the dangers of the tyranny of pure democracy.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, constitutional republic. William Roble says, I recommended to PJ the Belt that all the Alberta YouTubers daily contact the government-funded media, both via mail, email, and via telephone calls to speak about independence and make daily videos about it. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a good plan. I will say this. We do 2 live shows a day as well as we're doing a ton of interviews, probably 2 a day now. Or we have a full schedule. Like if we could make edited videos, at this point, we don't have any more time.
Maybe if we could do it live.
You okay? Nat's taking a sneeze on us here.
Sorry. Steve Zavaro says, this is where your Ukraine funds actually went. Could be a compelling ad when shown how Alberta ER waiting room times can drop if Alberta had those funds. That's a good idea too.
Well, and another thing is Alberta is funding the Federalist campaign against independence right now through the remittance payments. So it's a funny situation that's happening here.
It's a ridiculous situation. Misal Toad says, we knew the mainstream media is not going to be fair to us. That's just the way it is. What we have to do is deal with it and adapt. Yes, and continue to move forward to get more people to yes, or at least to understand the actual points for Alberta independence.
Well, and alternative strategies as well as we need to own the independent media space. We need to be reaching out to other content creators outside of Alberta to talk about adjacent conversations that really put the pressure on the federal government from all sides. We need to think of strategies that cost us no money and we can utilize the content creator space because that's the space that we own that they don't.
And also importantly, being able to get the message outside of just Canada and Alberta. I continue to say how important it is and how interesting it is also to other countries, people in other countries that are either going through similar things, that have the very same or very close adjacent issues to everything that Alberta independence represents, and that would be very interested in not just knowing where it goes, but also maybe even helping defend the fact that Albertans have the right to have that referendum and to ask that question, because they themselves would be very interested in asking similar questions within their countries. Specifically, for example, in the EU, people that want to leave the unelected governance of the EU would be very interested in what's happening in Alberta. And we're also seeing still very different messaging from even independent media outside of Canada and Alberta about Alberta independence because there's not enough information going out to them. But again, I'm sure, and I see people here in Mexico when I talk about it, be very interested in it, but not knowing too much about it.
Yeah.
So I think that is also an important strategy to take.
Also, just getting a list of content creators across Canada that are either Alberta independence supporters or adjacent that we can go on their shows to raise national awareness of what's going on in Alberta.
International.
National
and international.
I'm talking about mainly national right now.
Sean B says Ukraine money Canada sends is being washed by Freeland. Canadians are living on the streets like animals.
Absolutely. And everybody knows it. And Carney's bringing us closer and closer to the EU. If we don't vote to be independent, we're going to be ruled over by globalists in the EU within the next couple of years.
And we continue to see that conversation also coming up on mainstream media and as an actual possibility that they want to start to give to people.
Yeah, Jason Levine was just talking about it today on his show as well.
Mm-hmm. Smile to Life Every Day says another $270 million to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. There it goes.
And just a few months ago, it was more billions and more billions.
Richard Hayes says, thanks for that. I like Jeff, but let's get others on board. The base is already there. True.
Yeah.
And Canadian Spider-Man says, you said it, guy. But now let's go into Alberta and the world, as I've been talking about, kind of.
I will say this, like Jeff is very good rurally, but a lot of the voices that are going to be better in the cities have been kind of pushed to the side a little bit in Alberta independence. We need to bring them in because we're going to need them for Edmonton and Calgary, I think, for conversations. We can't just send anybody in to have a conversation in Calgary and Edmonton. Again, we might poison pill our own well at that point. We want to make sure we send the right voices in. A lot of the libertarian voices will play well in Calgary and Edmonton specifically.
Yes, but let's go into Alberta and the world. Let's get into not
Well, and I think the first story is something we were just talking about as well.
Jasmine Lane says, quote, there's lots to worry about as it pertains to using Europe as a means to success for Canada.
For The Economist. Rob, interesting comment from the Prime Minister there to start that the new world will be built out of Europe. What do you make of that declaration by Mark Carney today?
I would like Europe to start by ratifying CETA. I think we signed CETA in 2017. That's 9 years ago, and more than a third of the European countries haven't ratified.
It's provisionally in effect for the most part, but there's some parliaments that haven't gotten around to it.
But I think that illustrates one of the problems with the suggestion that the EU is where the future lies. It operates by consensus. It does not operate in a sprightly manner. The Prime Minister said he wants to move at speeds never seen before and do things never done before. That's not Europe. Their growth is puny. If there is growth, they are like Canada, unable to defend themselves. And they need to ramp up in a hurry. Some countries, like Germany, are doing that. But in the meantime, they need the backstop of the United States, just like Canada, in the interim, needs the United States as well. Boris Pistorius, 6 weeks ago, the defense minister of Germany, said that the United States remains the indispensable nation to European defense. And I know Trump...
And then they pulled 5,000 troops out of Germany.
And how the hell did that guy get on mainstream media? I'm sure they were regretting that because there was a lot of truth in all of what he said there.
Mm-hmm. And again, the insane notion of getting a failing country, which is Canada, together with a failing continent, basically, or group of countries that are all failing all at the same time as well, is...
But it's not just about them failing. It's about the sovereignty being taken from everybody that joined that alliance. If Alberta independence is successful and it's a conservative independence movement, you're going to see a lot of the more conservative countries within Eastern Europe want to break off because they want their sovereignty back. And they're realizing it was a raw deal. And now they're in a Chinese debt trap to EU banks.
But also from mbrand75 saying, quotes, so the new Governor General pushed this mess on Western nations? Yes.
Well, nothing prevents Canada from working with other countries right now. We don't need a global compact that binds Canada to provisions that are agreed to at the United Nations. We can do that already. And indeed, we have in many areas. But what we're saying today is that by signing on to this compact, our sovereignty to make those decisions ourselves as a country will be eroded. That's why we're opposed to it.
And it's very easy to see what happened between this story and the last story. With the last story, there's talk about Canada possibly eventually joining the EU. That puts the EU government over Canada and takes away a lot of its sovereignty. But again, we're signing onto accords and pacts with the EU on a weekly and monthly basis under Mark Carney. That takes our sovereignty away. We don't need to sign these contracts. We should keep open the ability to make the decision when things happen, not before they happen.
And speaking of the Governor General, from Mark Nixon saying, quote, Elizabeth May on the new Governor General, from one WEF UN globalist to another. This is what Canada needs. People that work for the WEF and the UN. Nothing says sovereignty, sovereign country like world elites from Davos.
The globalists are being rolled in lockstep by Mark Carney from the EU, from a lot of other countries as well.
Can we get your thoughts on the new Governor General appointment when the sirens are...
I just won the office pool because I predicted Louise Arbour.
Was it? And that's a WEF pin there, but she's walking up like the penguin from Batman.
Would be the new Governor General. As soon as I heard the Prime Minister say a woman who's thoroughly bilingual and appropriate, I wrote my little group. I said, it's going to be Louise Arbour. And I bet that's why she couldn't come and testify at the C11 committee, which is dealing with her recommendations on how to handle sexual abuse victims within the military. And there's been some discussion in Parliament. Well, Louise Arbour wouldn't testify. I was like, I know why she didn't testify. She's the next Governor General. So I think it's a thoroughly appropriate choice. C'est un très bon choix. Je pense qu'elle serait un très bon gouverneur général.
Don't care what you have to say in French. So
Thoroughly appropriate choice. Of course, the globalists are going to prove each other. As we get a majority government, you're going to see globalists just flood these committees as well. Governance is going to be done through committee, even with a majority government.
And thank you so much to Stephen Jensen for the $5 rubber band, saying worried about another Trudeau-style patriotic speech about how Canada loves Alberta just before the vote. A total BS lie. And yes, it will be. And hopefully by then, most Albertans will actually see through it. And if not, there's work we have to do so they can see through it.
Well, and you have to realize Donald Trump has been putting a lot of roadblocks in front of the globalists. He's slowed down a lot of their plans, and Mark Carney's in the position where he's really leading a lot of these globalists, and he doesn't have time to waste. He's going to keep pushing forward with his agenda, even with Alberta independence right there wanting a vote. So a lot of what Mark Carney does over the next 6 months, I think, is going to dramatically help Alberta independence.
But now I'll go into the rest of your comments. Richard Hayes says, I agree. Why don't the left ever mention the 23 reserves along the highway of tears? Because that would break down their narrative and their cognitive dissonance would just explode.
Well, there's all kinds of narratives when it comes to First Nations in almost every province. The water is an absolute disaster on most reservations. The amount of corruption between the elites and the actual members of the tribes, and how billions of dollars are being handed out, but not even $10 is being handed out to the people themselves.
Mm-hmm. Smile to Life Every Day says, we don't need more. We have great people in place. Guessing people to speak or spokespeople?
People to speak and spokespeople. Maybe give me 1 second. I'm going to go back to my notes here because I identified some communities that we needed to reach out within Edmonton and Calgary specifically. That was women, immigrants, libertarians, former NDP and former Liberals, as well as First Nations. Now we have people in place within the movement already. I've identified these people through interviews that we've done, but let's kind of go through it a little bit. When it comes to immigrants, we have Max from Freedom Calendar, we have Igor, and we have Igor's wife. That's a good base, but we use those people to go into town halls and hopefully identify more people that are in the immigrant community that support Alberta independence, and then have them be maybe spokespeople. With libertarians, we have Bruce Party. He's very prominent in the libertarian community. We have Home with Homes. They're conservative, but they have some libertarian strain of thought there, as well as the Critical Compass as well. We need to lean into those people when we go into Calgary and Edmonton. Now, when it comes to women, there's quite a few women we have. That's Nat, Nadine, Nat right here, Nadine. Homes with Homes is 2 young girls that are in a family.
Also for the youth, for the
youth
young
vote.
people.
Perfect. We have Sheila Gunn Reid, Tamara Litch. We have Paula from the Jason Levine Show as
And a
well.
bunch of others,
and
too.
there's a bunch of others. We need to start activating these people into dialogues, even in rural communities, so they can get more comfortable with public speaking. So when we do send them
A lot of them
into,
are already comfortable.
when we send them into Calgary and Edmonton, they're going to be well refined. And then we have First Nations people. We have Darren and Big Bear. Now, the one group that we didn't have a lot of was former Liberals and NDP members.
Or disenfranchised, I guess.
Or
would be the better way to
disenfranchised,
say
but
it.
we can find them, and we need to be reaching out to them, especially for Edmonton and Calgary. It's a completely different message we're going to need there.
Mm-hmm. And understanding that message first as well.
So you're right, we do have people, but again, I was watching a lot of on the ground conferences and get-togethers they were having through Freedom Calendar. And what happened was at the beginning, months and months ago, everybody had a lot of energy. And then as it went on, they were sending them all around the province, and they were getting tired and giving the same speeches. And it's not hitting with the same oomph. We need more. We need enough speakers where we're not going to drain them, and their message actually connects, especially with a live audience. Their energy is really going to come through. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to wear people out. So we do want speakers that number one, will appeal to people in Calgary and Edmonton, but number two, we don't want to wear those people out.
And they can share the load and the workload as well.
Yeah.
Because again, it is a lot of work. And especially now getting into the campaign season, it's going to ramp up, not going to ramp down. So also being able to give people breaks, I guess, as well as having the appropriate messaging for the different groups and specific groups that we can target.
Well, and we have to realize it's not just Calgary and Edmonton. There are some other major cities within Alberta that do have that same train of thought. So we're going to need a similar strategy in those cities as well.
And cooperation and cross-pollination, as we've been saying also with Mike Freedom Honey, speaking of the bees. Steve Surfaro says, one incentive I'm using to attract members of Live Safety Task Force is free access to our Gen AI prompts, allowing fast use of Grok in complex issues. Interesting. Steve Surfaro is within the tech safety, I think, space.
Tech security, as well as he does a lot of campaigning. He's very politically savvy as well.
Yes. Canadian Spider-Man says, simply throwing money at things does not solve problems in healthcare or anything else. Once Alberta stops paying transfer payments, if they have extra money, they had better spend it efficiently. Which is a very big ask and if.
Well, we need to start talking about how we're going to spend some of those payments that we're not going to be transferring anymore, because if we can identify that we want a certain kind of healthcare system, we're going to need to pitch that to Calgary and Edmonton. A lot of people in Calgary and Edmonton absolutely love socialized medicine. If we want a public-private sector, we need to pitch that on why that's better. But we need to know exactly on some of the big talking points going into Calgary and Edmonton, what kind of promises we can make.
But also being able to point at the failure and how broken the Canadian healthcare system is, and that by just saying that you're very proud that it's free healthcare for all, it's not actually getting at the root issue of not being able to even provide that free healthcare for all. And that is an issue, and that is an issue that they have and that they'll connect with. Freedom Train Elm says 70% of European farmers are struggling to find fertilizer right now because of the Strait of Hormuz being blocked. Europe is headed for trouble, and a trouble of their own making, I would say.
Well, I think it's intentional.
Poor planning.
I think it's intentional, and I don't think it's poor planning. They've outsourced a lot of their farming to other countries because they want absolute control over the farms. So there's been an attack on farmers globally, especially in the West. This is probably one of the number one issues we used to cover. And there was a lot of farmers protests popping up all over the place. And it was because they're trying to put farmers out of business by the same kind of onerous regulations they're trying to put the oil and gas business out in Alberta.
Yep. Control the food, control the people.
Yeah.
Hold on, because everything got messed up. YouTube kind of broke down. Give me 1 second while I reload the page. There we go. Richard Hayes says, if Canada joins the EU, when do we get our quota of illegal immigrants? I think we already have our fair share.
Well, I think I literally think the point that Canada joins the EU, they're going to dump all the immigrants into Canada and then get more for Europe. Canada right now can't attract enough immigrants because it's actually hard to get into Canada. You have to go through Mexico, then the United States, or you have to try to get a visa to actually fly in. If they need a legal method to flood Canada. We know they want 100 million people into Canada by 2100, I believe it is. That's a big task. The only way I can see accomplishing that is combining with Europe and taking a lot of their immigrants.
1 second. Freedom Train says Canadians have no interest in taking orders from Brussels. The EU would finish off any freedoms Canadians have left.
Well, I wish that was true, but sadly, according to the polling, it's not. 60% of Canadians actually want to be part of the EU because Conservatives are fleeing Canada en masse, and it's Liberals left, and Liberals like the idea of a failing nation, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Alberta needs to separate now, because Albertans would not vote to be part of the EU. But to make sure that doesn't happen, we have to vote for independence.
And thank you so much, Independent Alberta, for the $5 Rumble rant saying this is the education. Sorry, because Rumble got all messy on me. So that's why I couldn't see it before. Yes, saying this is the education phase. Believe it or not, some folks are so used to being abused, they don't even know what it's like to be free and what can be again. And that's another talking point that we were talking about with Dallas Brody. The fact that so many people, because they've been compliant and have become accustomed to this and the cognitive dissonance that they now have to just be able to live within the confines of what is and what has become Canada, once they go to elsewhere, Florida, for example, was the example given, but for us here in Mexico, or anybody that leaves Canada and is able to see what actual freedom is like, I think that's something we have to remind people of. And that in the education phase, I think that's going to be very important too. Smile to Everyday Life saying
thank you.
Thank you so much for the $10 super chat saying we need people to be on the same page and to be able to articulate issues without offending people on the fence and bringing more people on board for independence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And more yes people, more yes votes.
And again, I'm trying to broaden out the conversation, and I'm trying to find politicians that will possibly support Alberta independence publicly, because that takes pressure off of other politicians than saying, I support Alberta independence. We interviewed Maxime Bernier. He gave a strong endorsement of Alberta independence. Dallas Brody surprisingly had very deep connections to Alberta, and I liked her response as well. We're going to release that tomorrow. It's at the end of the interview. We broached all the other conversations first, and then we brought up Alberta independence at the end, and I was very pleasantly surprised with her response.
And Stephen James, thank you so much. Stephen Jensen, sorry. Thank you so much for the $5 Rumble rant, saying there's an Alberta Prosperity Society board member meeting later today. Hopefully we hear good news and some plans soon.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yes, and let us know how it goes if you can.
And again, we've already voted for our independence and we left. We live in Mexico now, but
I'm from Mexico.
We were completely blackpilled on Canadian politics. I thought there was no hope. Alberta independence is that hope to save literally Western values. God, I was going somewhere with that. What was the last comment?
Which is why we support independence so much?
No, what was the?
There's an Alberta Prosperity Society board member meeting later today. Hopefully we hear good news and some plans soon.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, we're broadcasting from Mexico, and sometimes it's very hard for us to get in contact with people and stuff like that. Jason Levine, when we were on his show, we talked to him after as well. Is going to help us out a lot of hopefully getting future interviews. And if we need to reach out to people, he's well connected on the ground. So that should really help us out. We appreciate everybody on the ground in Alberta that is helping us out so we can get the news out there.
And also, again, to say everybody that we've contacted or have tried to get in contact with have been incredibly gracious, have given us interviews, have spoken with us, and have also the similar concerns to what we have. So being able to interview them on those specific issues has been great.
Well, and Nadine was fantastic as well with helping us.
Everybody.
So, yeah.
Tal Talk says, FT, any sane person who follows UK and EU politics shudders at the mere thought of that. But again, maybe also understands that how quickly it could actually happen and how they could actually
and if you want to know how you get a supermajority and permanently change the Constitution to communism, I mean permanently outright, is if you join Canada with the EU and you allow a legal path for them to flood Canada with 100 million immigrants. Well, it would be 70. They want to get a total population in Canada to 100 million. That guarantees them they can vote for communism at that point. Vote communism in through the Constitution and completely shred the Constitution that's there right now.
And also remember, you always vote communism in, but to get out of it, it takes bloodshed.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get to that point. Canadian Spider-Man says it will only push Alberta out faster. Yes, exactly. The notion of having to join Canada or wanting to join Canada with the EU is another great talking point to get people to vote yes to become an independent Alberta nation. James B says, so tired of what the left saying Alberta will be taken over by the USA right after we leave. Keep asking them why do they not just come right now if that's what Donald Trump really wants.
Donald Trump doesn't want to take over Alberta. If anything, he wants to build a positive relationship with them because that's going to show an example to the rest of the world. He's not trying to take over these places. He's trying to give them prosperity, whether it's Alberta, Greenland, or other things. Mm-hmm. I mean, they keep wanting to paint this narrative of the big orange man bad, that he wants to take over Greenland and Panama and all these other places. But really, he wants to go there and make deals and relationships and alliances. And if he can make a strong alliance with Alberta and Alberta becomes 10 times more prosperous than Canada, it sets the example for every other trade negotiation he goes forward with, whether it's Greenland, Panama, or other places in South America, saying, you deal with us, you wind up like Alberta, which is prosperous and free.
Gregory J. Burns says, you need to make smaller clips to increase your audience. Yes, we know. We know. We're working on it, but there's only 2 of us that run this whole thing, and that's been the way since we started. I usually do all that. We divide the work, as we explained today on Jason Levine. I do the editing, post-production, posting things, etc., and he does all the pre-production, so all the investigation and research and looking for what to talk about on the show, all the camera work, all the set design, all the lights, everything. So we're trying, but we're also getting a lot more interviews, so that means a lot more editing and more time for that.
We're not quite maxed out yet because I'm getting used to gathering stories a lot quicker and having to watch a little bit less news every day to get the stories. But I think we're going to be maxed out because as we're becoming a little bit well known. So as we're reaching out to people for interviews, they're actually responding in a quick fashion. So we're hoping to release maybe 4 interviews a week in the future. And once we're doing 2 live shows a day and 4 interviews a week, I think that's going to be maximum capacity for 2 people. If the channel grows big enough where we actually make any kind of money or anything like that, maybe we can hire somebody in, and then that would allow us to do clips and more edited videos and stuff like that. But for 2 people right now, I think we're almost reaching our limit.
Yes. But for interviews, I have been thinking and able and trying to get ways to make little clips, or at least some of the answers, clip those and put those up. So you might start seeing those coming up as well.
Well, also in our interviews, we were talking about it yesterday, and getting a guest that's very specific, knowing about the CPP or different
specific
topics. We're going to ask specific questions so we can clip that thing for a short.
Yes. Freedom Train says to Canadian Spider-Man, hopefully seems there's a lot of politically ignorant people living in Alberta. I think it's more disenfranchised and unmotivated. They've lost all motivation to even care. So they're apathetic. And I think apathy, as hard as it seems to be able to push through and get the message out there, if you can get that one issue that they still care about, or they still follow, or that has impacted them personally, I think from there you can actually build and get away from that apathy that they have.
Yeah. And you have to understand,
and if you can give them a solution, which Alberta Independence is the solution.
A lot of liberals within Edmonton and Calgary are watching American social media and stuff like that. And there is a huge independence thread there because Democrats in the States are discontent. Although I don't like Democrats in the States, I do watch a lot of their shows and they are discontent. So what does that open the door to? The possibility of an independence movement within Alberta. We just need to figure out how to pitch it to Edmonton and Calgary in the appropriate way.
Yep. Gregory J. Burns says Canada has systematically flawed colonialism by population political system.
Repeat that. That went over my head.
Oh, has a. Sorry. Gregory J. Burns says Canada has a systematically flawed colonialism by population political system.
Well, yeah, and that's why we don't want to go back to the system before Justin Trudeau's dad, because we'll fall into the same traps. Although Renew Alberta is pitching this idea, I'm firmly against it. That idea and Renew Alberta may work very well in Edmonton and Calgary. Again, we have to open up the Overton window and figure out how we're going to get into Edmonton and Calgary. Once we go in there every single month, we need to be doing polling, because if we're going in there with a message and the polling comes back as we're not moving the needle, or we're even losing support within Edmonton and Calgary, that means we might need to shift the way we're strategizing for those cities.
William Robel says Canada joining the EU would mean war with the United States, which might be why Canada continues to say, and mainstream media continue to say, that the US is the most dangerous country for Canada currently, even though the own prime minister, the unelected prime minister, said a year ago that China was the biggest threat, and now he's making deals with them. So Richard Hayes says, Carney wants to diversify our trade. Does Canada have a bunch of container ships I don't know about? Existing ones are already busy.
You try to diversify your trade halfway across the world. It costs money to get products there and back. The United States is right there. Cut a freaking deal already. You promised it a year ago. It's not happening.
Todd Talk says a lot of independence campaign work needs to be done with the AB Hutterite colonies. They are a large and not so homogenous voting bloc in the province.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know anything about it, but it's good to bring it to my attention. I'll research it a little bit.
Canadian Spider-Man says, TrueNet. People that have lived in other countries can see how bad Canada has become. Living in Japan, America, and Oz is New Zealand, Australia. Australia has shown me this. My travels to communist countries has awoken me and others too.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Not a lot of people have had that opportunity. So you have to be able to pitch it to them so they understand that they are not as free as they think they are.
We also have to realize there's a hard turn going towards communism and advanced socialism within liberal communities, within cities, all across the United States, in California, in New York, within Calgary and Edmonton. A lot of liberals actually want communism, and that's going to be a problem. So how we figure out how to pitch this is very important. We need to start having the grassroots talk to each other, the channels talk to each other, and we need polling to know what arguments are going to work good in the big cities.
And thank you so much to Smile to Life Every Day for the $2 super chat and saying both of you are doing a great job. Enjoy your show. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. Okay, Tal Talk says, in Red Deer, we had a mixed reaction when approaching the area colonies about the petition. And that's why, again, we need to be able to figure out how to get to those specific communities. Canadian Spider-Man says, we need people who've lived or spent time in communist countries to speak out and warn other Canadians.
Well, and I know when we go into Calgary and Edmonton,
we have a lot of people that escaped the CCP within Canada.
We have this big habit within the countryside, and because it works, and it works for me, and I like it, and I put it all over my thumbnails as well as the Alberta flag everywhere. Fly it high, fly it proud. But when we go into Calgary and Edmonton, we want to start conversations with the people that when they see the flag, they're literally going to walk the other way. So maybe just having a billboard saying Alberta Independence ? Let's talk. I don't know. We need ideas. But flying big blue flags might not work in those specific two cities to reach the demographic we need to reach. Yes, people will talk to us, but there is a little bit of support in those cities. So we may think we're having success, say we go into Calgary with a big blue flag, but we're only building more of an echo chamber of people that will already vote for independence. We really need to shift the people that will only walk up to us if they don't know what we're kind of pitching, maybe.
And that might, unfortunately, and I do think it's unfortunately, but that might build more animosity towards even being able to start a conversation.
Within those two cities,
Within the cities, yeah. Canadian Spider-Man says, I was wondering about Red Deer and the duck, says to Tal Talks. And Tal says, Hutterite colonies vote by attestation, so getting them on board is uber important. Now Norman says, look up Kathy Flatt and Angela. They are starting Women of Independence. And we are speaking with Kathy Flatt soon, so we're very excited about that.
On Friday, I believe.
And thank you for that. And Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 Rumble rant, saying other countries and news outlets are looking at us and saying what the hell is happening to Canada.
Exactly.
And you can use that to bring up the Alberta independence conversation, which is kind of what we've been trying to do. Not so successfully with you as content creators, but we're going to continue to try because there are other countries that do speak about Canada like it's gone loopy, like it's gone insane and they have no idea how it happened. With Alberta independence, you're able to broach that topic and use that topic to speak about why independence is important.
Yeah.
And what it actually means and what it's actually about. Tal Talks says to Canadian Spider-Man, our Telegram group is still quite active with other central Alberta groups. Red Deer has always been at the heart of Alberta conservatism. William Robel says, Guy, not only is trade between my country, the US, and Canada not happening, the chances of it happening is getting worse because of Canada, literally because of Canada.
Absolutely. I mean, Mexico's chosen the opposite path, and they have a far left ideologue for a leader in Claudia Sheinbaum. She's chosen to cooperate militarily and economically, and it's having major economic benefits for Mexico right now. A matter of fact, a lot of the manufacturing that's coming out of Canada because they can no longer survive, Trump's literally saying, we don't want it in the United States. Mexico will take you, and we're taking a lot of the dye manufacturing and stuff like that right now.
William Robel says to Smile to Life Every Day, they're doing a great job. Thank you so much, William Robel. And thank you for being here from the US as well. Again, we do still have some subscribers from the US that are interested in this topic already. So I know the interest is there. It's just the information that needs to get out.
Yeah, and we're going to talk to Jason Levine on Friday. And we're going to bring up a lot of campaign strategies and stuff like that. I think campaign strategies really have changed before Charlie Kirk and after Charlie Kirk. There's a new way of campaigning on the ground and online, and the way different groups actually affect other groups and how adjacent conversations affect other adjacent conversations. So hopefully we can bring some of that up.
Yes, and speaking of, Threadfast has a good comment here that I think piggybacks on that one, saying we need to energize and engage Gen Z. They need to realize that they are a big part of the future of the future independence, and how independence will benefit them and their legacy and their future, and why that is important. A lot of them, again, are within that apathy bubble and within that despair bubble. I don't think they see it as even a possibility yet because, for example, the question hasn't been fully set for a referendum, or it hasn't been fully declared that it's going to be on the referendum. So maybe, and you use this talking point all the time, maybe once the question is there, we might get more interest from the young people in Gen Z, but I think we can do it even before then.
What I'm going to say here is...
Speaking of Charlie Kirk.
What I'm going to say here is Pierre Poilievre did a lot of the work for us. When you looked at his polling numbers, young conservative men, even in cities, were all voting for him. We're going to be able to capture that vote very quickly just by pointing out Poilievre can't affect change for 3 years. Canada is going to be destroyed in 3 years. We can enact change now. We'll vote for independence. For that particular demographic of young men in cities, I think it's going to work very well, because although a lot of effort needs to be put on women in cities, we're also going to need to focus on young men. And I think Poilievre did a lot of the work for us. We just need to point out he's impotent at this point. He can't do anything to affect change. Alberta independence can. Our first principles are stronger than Poilievre's, and we're going to go farther than Poilievre's. That's massively going to appeal to young men in cities of Calgary and Edmonton.
And I even think for young people in general, not just young men, that whole pointing out of and making them see where they're standing right now, what opportunities they've lost and which ones they don't have, how hard it is to find a job, how their university degrees might probably be useless to find a job because of what's happening within Canada and the policies that have been imposed also upon Alberta. That is a good way to, number one, make them reflect on their current status, and then give them the solution of, well, Alberta independence within an independent Alberta, all of these things, and list them and explain them. All of these things are able to change, which will help you secure a better future.
Well, young conservative men are going to be easy within cities because Poilievre did the work for us. We just need to point out his ineptitude at this point. But young liberal men, I think, are also going to be an easier demographic within cities because economics is going to be important for them. The economics of Canada are so bad right now. I think they're going to be willing to vote for independence, and economics and logic may work on liberal men. Now, liberal women is going to be it's a 50% of these cities. It's going to be much harder to do, and it takes much different tactics. We have to broach adjacent groups and adjacent topics so they don't kind of realize that we're actually pitching something very, very political.
Yeah. James B says CUSMA, or USMCA, I don't like calling it CUSMA, will be torn up and Canada's dollar will fall even worse than it already has.
We need
thousands of jobs lost with hundreds of businesses lost. Looks very grim to me.
We need to get the hell out of the Canadian dollar as soon as possible. If the Canadian economy collapses before Alberta gets its independence, we're going to have a huge debt we're going to be saddled with in our negotiations if we want to rush those negotiations through. Now, I don't think it's going to collapse before then. So when we do get our independence, we have the option of adopting the US dollar, which is the world currency, while we are in a transitional phase to getting to some kind of Albertan go back standard.
Canadian Spider-Man says, the more I listen to you both, and it's been many, many hours now, and thank you so much, says, the more I see Guy as a potential spokesperson for younger independent-minded guys. I can't say for Nat since I'm not a woman. Maybe.
I'm so tired right now from all the interviews and stuff we did, but
he ain't that young.
That's what I'm trying to. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to convince people online, and I mean, I've talked about this issue day in and day out, twice a day. I'm getting okay at talking about it online, and I honestly think we need people to really talk online, because the online sector, especially in cities, is how we're going to breach these bubbles and things like this. If we can breach them and plant seeds online first, when they see somebody in person on the street, they'll have the conversation. Yeah. But if we don't plant seeds from online communities and adjacent conversations, they're probably going to walk the other way or not want to engage in a conversation, in a dialogue in person. And I think that's why the national conversation and the conversation online needs to happen simultaneously to the ground game.
Thank you so much to Independent Alberta for the $5 Rumble Rant, saying, I hear from the younger generations, I don't get into politics. I counter then I counter with, then politics will be into you. And oh, will it? Exactly. Yeah. Canadian Spider-Man says, sorry that Canadians are so naive and easily fooled. To William Robel, USA is our best friend and we owe them big time.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good point that Clyde Do Something brought up during our interview, that yes, Canadians don't want to admit it, but they do owe a lot to the United States.
Absolutely. A lot of nations owe a lot to the United States.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
What Western values are, I know they're quickly disappearing, but if we can save them, those values were put there by the United States primarily, and Christianity.
Richard Hayes says the Canadian economy must be weak so our resources can be bought up cheap by politicians that are invested in this and other nations and the CCP.
Yeah, I think he wants to federalize natural resources through the 30 by 30 plan, as well as his banking scheme he's got going right now.
Justin GP says, and to reach young women, we have to go in with a man-hating approach, and then they might listen. Well, it's interesting because I mentioned it a bunch of times. I used to work in high schools in Vancouver, not as a teacher, but as I was just there as a youth advisor is what it was called. And I don't think it's as impossible as a lot of people might be thinking, especially when it's coming either from women or from a more intellectual standpoint, and an easier way to get in by talking about specific subjects that are of interest already. But again, there is that apathy that you do have to get past, but people care more and young people care more about politics than I think older people give them credit for.
Well, and I don't know how much we've talked about it of recent times, but I used to be very non-political, and you're the one that red-pilled me, and now I'm very conservative. You used to be a freaking liberal. So you're one of these individuals that we need, people that used to be NDP or used to be liberals. You used to be very liberal in nature, and you're more...
Well, not in nature. I used to be very woke, and I was just going along to get along. And I think there's a lot of people like that just because they think that that's the only right position.
Well, what I'm saying is you're one of the most conservative people that I know now.
Yes.
And how that happened and what talking points and what you've seen that woke you up might really be effective in big cities as well.
Yeah.
So
getting people like that, I guess, as well, too. Again, I went from organizing pride marches to then marching against the Billboard Chris. Justin GP says, and because I realized what was going on, the way I kind of switched, and this happened a long time ago, 2015, 2016, and I was kind of at the forefront of kind of the realization of what was actually going on, was because I was in those rooms and in those planning sessions and all the crazy kooky things they do behind closed doors to talk about what their actual strategies were and what they actually wanted to do in general, what their goals were. And that's when I realized these people are insane and I can't continue to support this. I was already kind of against feminism, and that was very taboo, and I couldn't really say it within those circles. But that was one of the things that kind of got me to really look back and step back and go look for my own information, find other ways of thinking, other people that were thinking similar things to what I was thinking and that I thought I couldn't say. And then that's kind of what really pushed me towards learning and fully engaging with other ideas, which eventually turned out to be, these are things that I actually already believed, but I didn't know how to properly canalizarlas, channel them. Sorry. My Spanish came in.
Well, there's a lot of lies of feminism as well, and a lot of women are getting older and waking up
and realizing
and starting to realize these lies. Their childbearing years are gone, and they realize their careers left them empty. Maybe not to broach it so directly, but to say what our vision of a future free, independent Alberta, so we can have one income per household, actually supporting a family, so women don't have to work if they don't want to give them that option, not to say that they have to stay home or they have to do this, but to actually give them an option, because in today's society, it's like you have to work in order to survive as a woman.
Justin GP says, and again, this kind of goes towards everything we just said, but says, and I'm half joking, but half truthful, kids are not engaged and all they care about is their next Tinder date. But it's not that way. And that's the thing. A lot of older adults, I will say, think that the younger adults aren't engaged, but number one, they're consuming information in a very different way and through very different means. A lot of it online, but also amongst talking to each other for the ones that have completely given up on technology already. And there is quite a few of those as well. But interestingly, in the high schools I was working at, I used to always have a headphone in, and I would listen to Charlie Kirk, for example. And one time I had my phone playing with Charlie Kirk there, and I kind of did let kids see what I was looking at because I didn't care when they would walk around me. And a few of them had come up to me and said, oh, I really like Charlie Kirk. Oh, I listened to Charlie Kirk. Some of them even immigrant kids, kids that were first generation or had just gone to Canada and barely spoke English, but said, oh, I really like Charlie Kirk. I listened to him. And that would also help me engage in conversations with them. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. But they're more engaged than I think people want to give them credit for.
Well, we can't overly invest.
You just have to know how to get into them, into their heads.
We can't overly invest in a ground game in Calgary and Edmonton. We have to invest heavily in an online game as well to plant seeds in people's heads. So when they see people on the street, they'll engage in the conversation. The youth within the cities, especially women, get their information from online first, and they typically. A lot of youth are scared to even engage in a real conversation in real life.
Person, yeah.
So it's the online game that's going to work in Calgary and Edmonton. I'm sorry to say it. We will see some progression from the ground game as well, but I think the online game is actually the most important when it comes to the big cities.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Jensen says we need large-scale family-friendly events with change my mind sessions and information fact-based packages. And again, that might work in some situations, but in some that might actually turn people off. That's the thing, and that's.
We have to be careful with change our minds. They're very good when it comes to conservatives because typically how a change my mind works. Stephen Crowder did a educational video of this. If anybody's going to do a change my mind, literally he makes a binder with every talking point, every counter talking point, memorizes them all so he can automatically counter any argument. And then he has people kind of sit down, and it's really meant to be an I got you or clips. And that's,
even though he says it's not,
that's what a change your mind is. And it appeals to conservatives, those clips. It may shut down the conversation a little bit if you keep clipping liberals trying to have liberal talking points, and then it's an I got you moment. I think we want to engage in a constructive dialogue. I'm not saying don't do change your minds, but I'm just saying be aware when we do them in cities, and if we try to clip them and have them go viral, it may appeal to the audience that we already have.
Yes.
And the vote that we already have.
And that's not what we're looking at, even though it might help with messaging or with, in a way, making ourselves feel better. It's going to turn everybody else off. Everybody that you do need a vote from, and the few that you do actually need to change their minds and have to convince, that's just going to make them walk away even faster, I think.
And in the opposite way.
And they already know how it works. They've already seen this tactic and this technique. So as soon as they see, in my opinion, a lot of them, and especially the crazy ones, as soon as they see a change my mind table or event, they will either attack it immediately without even engaging with it, or just walk away and not be engaged with it.
Yeah, but it's not to say don't do it. It's to say, let's try it, see what happens, who engages with the content. Is it already people that we have? And is it turning off the potential voters we need to shift? We need to try these things because I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. So we do need to try it, but we need to be wary when we do try a strategy. What are the potential pitfalls of that strategy?
Yeah. William Robel says Canada owes itself a bigger path. What's good for Canada is good for the U.S. and vice versa. And Canada's completely forgotten about that. Mexico is still kind of understanding that if it's good for the U.S., it's good for the Mexico.
Oh, yeah, we got to wrap pretty soon because we have to take a nap between shows because we've been up since 4 a.m. You need one.
Canadian Spider-Man says, you said it, buddy, to William Robel. Tal Talk says the Hate the USA narrative is being pushed by the LPC and other Canadian leftist groups is as dangerous as it is naive. The Alberta independence movement has a lot of sympathy and support in U.S. right-wing spheres. Yeah. Canadian Spider-Man asks, has Guy studied psychology or just had a lot of experience observing people? He used to work at a bar.
Observing Nat.
No, he used to work at a bar, so we would engage with people every day.
Oh, yeah, I used to do security, so knowing how to get somebody to do something without having to get physical. I mean, I used to teach jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, but you've already lost if you have to get physical. So knowing how to engage people and actually change their mind kind of on the spot to have them choose to walk out the door.
Yeah. Make them think it's their idea.
Yeah. So.
William Robel says, sadly, Canada's themes intend on national unaliving, talking about joining the EU, destroying the trade relationship with your best and largest trade partner. It's insanity. Yes, Canadian Spider-Man says the USA-Canadian partnership has made us both strong and included. With corruption-free Mexico spent a lot of time there. Our three countries could be completely independent and strong. Yes, they could.
Yeah.
And the reluctance
It could be the powerhouse of the world.
Yeah. It was at one point. Canadian Spider-Man says it's on purpose, and more people are starting to say that. Good. Canadian Spider-Man says if all women thought like Nat, then women as a whole would be so much better off. Good role model.
Yeah, but you also have to realize she didn't always think like this. And that's the thing. And that's why when I even see Keith Wilson, and I like most of what Keith Wilson says, almost everything, but he says there's some people who are just not going to change their minds. I tend to disagree. If we plant the right seeds and have the right messaging, those seeds grow and people's minds change. And you'll be so amazed sometimes at how easy it was to shift people.
And people's minds, you can get people to change their minds by themselves as well.
Yeah.
Because again, that happened to me.
That's when it usually happens.
Nobody changed my mind. I changed my own mind.
You plant the seed and over time you'll see. Yes. And we have 6 months.
Mark MX says, hey, hello. Thank you for being here, Mark. Tall Talk says it's absolutely an intentional destruction from within. That's standard operating procedure for the Marxist theory playbook. Almost done. James B says, hopefully these people see what's going on right now, because if they don't, then the opportunity will not exist in the future. Government will pass laws, etc., that will not allow people to speak or act. Exactly. That's the correct point. And Smile to Life Every Day, thank you so much, says, absolutely, Nat is a wonderful role model for women. Well, I don't know if wonderful, but thank you so much. I try. We have a lot on our UMBLE. Are we going over to our UMBLE?
No, because I have to eat, and then I have to take a nap. I've been up since 4 a.m., and then I have to prepare the night show as well. I don't have all the stories yet.
I know. Hold on, because most of them were, thank you so much, most of them were Rumble rants. Independent Alberta says, Guy, I'm glad I'm not the only one that goes through that. and says, and you have to decompress for your own health and sanity. And that is why we need more voices to be able to go on these tours and do the work that is very needed as well. Okay.
And I appreciate everybody's input, because it's been really good asking for suggestions and strategies, and do that on other people's shows as well, because that's how it trickles its way up to the leadership and people that are running these decentralized organizations.
And KP for you quickly says, I'm not sure how to get to the city people, but I think Chris Scott, education is the most important factor. People still on the fence probably don't understand how much we gain. And I think that is a big issue.
Yeah, and I think the difference is in cities, it's going to be online education and planting seeds online first, and then in-person education. And it has to be done in that order, because I don't think you can do it in the other order when it comes to cities.
Yeah. Okay.
That was it?
Well, we have 2 more.
Okay, go
I'll
ahead.
read them really quickly. Tal Talk says, feminism is the first horse that Marxism rode into our institutions. Exactly. I'm advocating against feminist gangs in the Alberta independence movement. We do not want 2 classes of citizens. No, you don't. Don Adelac says, reminds me of the ladies I grew up in around the 60s and 70s. And that's a lot like them. Oh, thank you. I guess. For me, my ideal version of, a lot of people think, oh, we have to go back to the 50s or 60s or 70s. But my ideal version would be to go back to the era before the industrialized age and industrialization, and look back towards the more agrarian societies and what we can learn from them. Okay, I'm done. We'll see you tonight at 5 p.m.
At 5 p.m.
Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you so much for your super chats and your Rumble rants, and for being here and engaging in the conversation as well.
Adios.
Goodbye.